Welcome to part 2 of the willow bracelet that I am creating. I looked up the term or the words thin, narrow, streamlined, and an alternative was willowy. And I thought, oh my gosh, I totally love how that sounds. I wanted to come up with a bracelet that would be quick to make, but not so much just a friendship bracelet with a flat pattern, but to utilize the loops that I know many of us love, including myself. And so we're going to be using a size 8/0 Toho, and we're just going to go 3 beads across. Normally when I do these bracelets, I'm going 6 across. So that is why we have the 4 warps, and they're sounding good. And just to go over again, remember you want the bottom of the base of the jewel loom and the top of the warps to be no more than 2 inches. Many times I'll see people really just make those warps so stinking tight that their loom is way too bended. And you need to remember this is a flexible plastic, not a bendable one. So again, the belly of your jewel loom, the top right here, and the warps should be no more than 2 inches. All right. So I've also got my beads on the jewel loom bead board. This is the cork where you could put your needle, and I've already threaded my wildfire. I'm using beige, and it's the 0.006. So I'm going to take a seat, and what I'm going to do is find the end of my wildfire. And many people start off in different ways. I, usually will just tie a little knot right here. And I like my projects to be centered, so I have even amounts of warps at the top and the bottom. Okay, so the bottom and the top. And usually for me, having a 6-inch wrist, that means that I go right below that hole right there where the rod was. So I'm gonna place my loom down, and let me just double check on my shot here, okay? I am working with the loom in front of me. It's a little bit at an angle. This is my right hand, this is my left hand. And so I'm going to take the needle and the thread, and I'm going to transfer all of that over to my left hand. And let me just get that in there. I'm going to bring the needle under the warps and then transfer it back into my right hand. And then I'm going to pick up 3 beads. And I'm a scooper, so I'll just scoop them up like that. And then I let them all fall. I help to guide them. And as I'm bringing them up and under the warps, I'm going to use my left hand to help guide them. And you can see that I put pressure in the middle here of the loom with these 2 fingers, right? My ring finger and my pinky finger. This helps to stabilize the loom so that when you're working with it, it's not so wiggly. But, do remember that it weighs very little. And so obviously you're going to have a little bit of a wiggle. You could always use double-sided tape to keep it from moving around. You can work on a non-skid surface. There's a couple things that you could do. Also, take note that I then bring in my right hand to help stabilize the loom again. And then again, bringing the needle under the warps, and then we're gonna pick up 3 more beads. So we just keep doing this process until the length of what the bracelet we are making is completed. I'm have a 6-inch wrist, and in this moment, I'm looking at sewing on a button clasp. I might change my mind. I always say to know how you're going to finish before you start. And hey, I'm sometimes not too sure. But in this moment, I'm considering sewing on a 3-hole button clasp. I'm probably going to stick with that. And again, just scooping up, letting them fall, helping to guide them. and then popping them up and in between those warps. And then you want to make sure that the needle is going through the holes and that the needle is on top of the warp. If the needle is not on top of the warp, your bead will fall off. And that's not what we want. I'm going to scooch this up a little bit, and then I just want to make sure once again, yep, we're still in camera view. And I'm going to pick these guys up. 1, 2, 3. This is where that nice meditative, quiet time comes in, because you're just really busy focusing, and it's such a beautiful, soulful dance. My fingernails are currently extremely short, so I usually like having a little bit of length on my thumb there because it makes as a good scooper, but we are working with the minimum right now when it comes to fingernails. And I have a love-hate relationship with fake nails. I think they're absolutely gorgeous, and however, they're not always the best for your fingernail bed. And so it's like, so anyway. Really does help to pay attention to how I maneuver my hands and keep the, keep the loom still as I'm working on it. I am working, by the way, this is the Rainbow Rosaline 80. It's one of my favorites. I think I've worked with it several times now. It just is a nice base. And in all honesty, it's not often that you see the base when you're making a bracelet like this, because it's all covered up with the decorative beads. So, you could kind of go any way you wanted, even if you were just trying to use some beads that you had. I love when it makes that sound and you can feel that the beads are actually popping into the warps. It's pretty cool. I want to bring this up really quick here and just point out, like I'm always making sure that there's no excess thread. That's really nice and clean. And so you'll see how I'm maneuver my fingers when I'm doing that. Again, let's just make sure we're good here. Okay. Always giving it like a little tug there. And so right now I'm working on the base for my project, for my willowy bracelet. And I have 4 warps. I skipped 1 groove, and I am using the Toho size 8 round seed bead. You always have a base to your looming project. And it just depends on, what bead you choose to use. You can use seed beads. You could use the square beads. You could use 6mm, 8mm, 10mm, it just depends on what type of project you're making. We're working with a willowy looped bracelet, and so I tend to go with the 8/0s, mostly because you definitely can get back through the 8/0s to make your loops. The 11/0s would be very challenging to loop, as would the 15/0s. So I'd recommend always going with an 8. And then you can explore what it looks like if you were to use a 6/0 or perhaps a 3/0, which would probably be really